So hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of the Isle of Man Sport podcast. Today we are very lucky to have a guest from overseas, but who originated from this fair isle, Mr. Jack Walton. Jack, welcome, how are you?
How are you, Trev? Good to see you. You collared me. I was on the scrounge for a cheap round of golf this afternoon, given I've come over for a flying visit to see some family and friends. Put a message out on Facebook to see if anyone can get me a free round at Rowney Golf Club, and then 2 minutes later I agreed to come and do a podcast with you, which kind of sums up the way that things happen over here, doesn't it, I guess?
Absolutely. It's, you know, the benefits of social media, well, for me in particular. But
No, it's good actually. I was at a loose end, so it's nice to fill the morning with something productive, and it gives me a good excuse to get something out on the Liverpool FA podcast as well, which I've been quite dormant with for a while now.
Killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
Super. So Jack, just for our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your sort of work roles have been, and what you're up to today?
Well, today, like I said, is just a flying visit. Just had a good day at St George's yesterday, actually, with our FA education department. Looking back on the last year and looking forward for the next 3 or 4 years. So that was good. We can go into that, I guess, as the conversation goes. But yeah, I realised that I'm long overdue with a cuddle with my niece, so I need to come over and see some of the family and get back. It's easy to get lost over there and forget. You've still got family to come and see. So. What do we say? Roles and
so what was your journey in sport, I suppose, and like how you got into sport, how you ended up working in sport, and sort of how it's got you to where you are now.
Well, as I constantly get reminded by the lads I knock about with in Liverpool, the football team, I was a very fat young child. So in primary school, I was very overweight, and as the lads keep bringing up old photos that they somehow dig up, that gets sent to them. So sport, I guess at primary school wasn't particularly sporty all round, although we did play a lot of football. And then I would say what got me into it really was Rushen High School. I can remember the first day. I can remember so much so clearly. But we were really, really, really lucky to have, at the time when we started, 2 incredible male role model PE teachers. In fact, the whole PE unit were brilliant at Rushen. So we had Guy Smith was head of PE, and Neil McGregor was also working in the department, and then you had Sue Messenger headed up the girls' side. But so you had a team of PE staff there who, when I look back, were just unbelievable in terms of what they did for us. I think when we were in about year 9, Cliffy Dunn then came and joined. So you take those 3, and for those that know those 3 people, they are they're incredible human beings who I owe personally a massive debt to. And I was talking to somebody about this recently, because they would go to so many lengths to open doors and opportunities for us, literally. So every single morning the school bell would ring at 9, but someone would be there from, say, 8:15, 8:30 to open up the sports hall and open up the cupboard that had all the basketballs in. And every single morning you would have dozens of kids from year 7 right the way up to year 13 out practicing their free throws, playing 1v1 in the sports hall. So that there's one example. They would make sure that I think back to the boys I coach now are year 11, so under 16s. Every single day of the week we would do sport. So it would be, whether that be PE and games, which is your kind of formal hours a week, but then to bookend that, you would have every single lunchtime there would be some form of activity on, and then if you didn't have a fixture, there would be some sort of after school club. And then a good example of that would be in year 11, we had a bit of a freak outlier year group from what I can remember at school. So there was quite we had the British high jump champion Martin Aram. So he was really good in your basketball team, and we had a really freakish year group who were just so into all sports, not just one. And I remember at year 11, so it's GCSE year, but the PE staff noticed that we'd done volleyball in GCSE PE, and they noticed that we were really keen on this. So the three of them rounded up another 3 teachers to come and play on a Friday lunchtime, come and have a game of volleyball. So they would just literally, they would do so much to open up opportunities for us to play and enjoy sport.
Yeah.
And I guess that is a long-winded way of kind of saying how did I get into sport? Well, that those school experiences combined with the club, I was at Colby as a youngster right the way through my youth years, and it's crazy to think how much sport we used to play.
It was really interesting you say that, especially with regards to Castle Rushen. We had Phil Kringle on one of our previous episodes on the podcast,
right?
And again, he had nothing but great things to say about those 3 gentlemen as well. And having been down there myself in my athletics development officer's days, I got invited to do some discus work with them, and I saw firsthand at lunchtime what happens at the school. Yeah. And every PE teacher was there delivering some aspect of athletics, and there was like tons of kids getting down there and getting real focused help on the technical side of athletics, because it can be quite technical, but it looked like they were having absolutely loads of fun as well.
Yeah, and look, I didn't realise the impact of this until I moved away. I just thought that's the norm, and I guess over here what I've learned is we're blessed with facilities and space and land. There's not many schools in inner city Liverpool that have the sort of space and fields that we had when we were growing up in that school. But it's all right.
Olivia, contact reception.
Who is it?
Olivia, contact
Olivia.
reception.
Okay.
Olivia.
So we were blessed in terms of facilities, but it was only when I moved across 10 years ago that I realised, speaking to teammates, what did you about their school experiences, and it was literally nothing but football, all the way through. Maybe the odd other sport, but I was kind of counting up the number of sports that we were exposed to, and the way I measured it was kind of you had to have done it for half a term or more, so at least 6 weeks counts as kind of ticking it off. And I think I got up to about 14, 15 different sports. Crikey,
that's brilliant to be able to sample that many sports.
Yeah, but I guess not even just sample, but actually do it over I guess this extended period of time, having a go at it. And this ties back into what we were doing at St George's Park yesterday. We got some a really interesting presentation from Dr. Kate Baker, who heads up our player insights, and they've been doing all sorts of research into the developmental pathways of all of the current England squad, the first team squad, right the way down to say the under 15s.
Right.
And you won't be surprised to hear that there's a fair amount who are playing other sports. So athletics actually features most prominently in terms of the support sport or other sports that those players have taken part in during their developmental pathway. And for me I guess given that we'd played so many sports, I've got no excuse to actually. I should have made it as a good player. Anyone that knows played with me or against me will know that's that's not the case. But it was just a great introduction into something that has, for me, has and will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Fantastic, and that's what PE is about, isn't it? Physical education. It's about giving you that start in life so that you can fall in love with physical activity and take that through the rest of your life.
And it was it made me laugh because I actually went full circle after I graduated, did some work out in the States, and I moved back to the island when I was about 23 to pay off some student debts and to just get some experience, really. I ended up going back to work at Castle Rushen as an education support officer. So basically we were really short of teachers at the time, so it would be covering maybe 3-4 lessons a day. But I got obviously involved with the sport and the PE because I'd done some coaching qualifications at that point. And you got to see the from the other side, so how the PE teachers work. And they used to have and it's great, they used to have this thing against some of the other schools where they would kind of compete So Castle Rushen would play Ramsey, for say, and there would be a competition to see who could like put the most teams out. So if at year 7, if you could get a Z team out, then brilliant. So in other words, it wasn't just about, and this is what I found across, often it is, you go for trials for your school team in September, and if you don't make it into the school team, that's kind of, from what I hear, in most cases a closed shop. So your opportunity to develop as a footballer in your school, I'm sure not always, but oftentimes sounds limited.
That's correct.
Whereas given the space, or there's less pitch constraints over here, if anyone showed any interest in playing sport, what they would do is there would be no kind of discrimination against ability. Everyone would play and represent the school if you turn up and work hard and go to training. And that it's not just the sport stuff, I think, that those guys, should be commended for. It's actually the life skills and the values, the deeper stuff that we learn through that.
Yeah, I mean, I was exposed to that through Neil McGregor, myself playing Island Schools rugby, and Keith Pote at the time. And then again, Guy Smith, when I got exposed to Guy, because I went to Ballacomene as an athlete, and he would take the team to the Merseyside Championships, county championships. So, the real gentleman, I think, is the word I would give for all of them. Real valued gentlemen.
Firm and fair though as well. They were very principled. I'm talking like the dead here. They're still very much like kicking. Sorry, Guy, but they're really principled people, and you knew where you stood. And if you put the effort in, wow, did you get the rewards back? But if you did step out of line, you soon knew about it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how did you develop then into working into sport? How did you get into that sort of career?
Well, believe it or not, I never actually picked PE in my A-levels. I can remember this now. I think my parents were kind of at odds over what to do at A-levels, and I didn't actually pick PE, and I think I went to 2 weeks worth of AS level IT lessons and thought, I can't deal with this. I went grovelling on my hands and knees to Guy and said, look, any chance I can switch over? Fortunately, yes. That led to getting some good grades, and a spot opened up in clearing to go to Loughborough. I applied for a straight sports science degree, which is like the most oversubscribed degree in the country.
Absolutely, especially at Loughborough as well.
Didn't get the grades, unsurprisingly, but they offered me, which I didn't even realise this course existed. It was sports science and physics, and I actually really enjoyed physics because I had an amazing teacher in Jeff Cork, who was, you think about teaching and coaching and just good principles of teaching. That guy is just incredible. I still remember, and I was talking to somebody recently about this, some of his lessons and how the way that he taught so that things would be memorable and you were involved in the learning process rather than just being talked at.
So creating a real effective learning environment for people.
Amazing, yeah. I can still remember his lesson on the difference between the speed of light and the speed of sound now, having us banging bricks together over the opposite sides of the Castle Rushen sports field and timing the difference. But he was is an incredible teacher, an amazing person. So that kind of led me down to going to Loughborough, and it was kind of like it was a tough environment I found to deal with early on, because you'd come from the kind of relative goldfish bowl of the Isle of Man to suddenly a real elite sporting environment where and you couple that in with leaving home, having to make new friends, literally not knowing a single person there in this kind of.
Can be a hard transition from an island life to across the pond, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the funny thing was, I found myself like really missing the sea. Like the first time I realised I'd missing the sound of seagulls, believe it or not. But it's an amazing place, an amazing university. Having just come through a master's degree, I've realised that at that point in my life, and I dare say a lot of 18-year-olds' lives, I wasn't mature enough to study at that level and to to do what you need to do to give a degree of full justice. There's plenty of kids that are, but I'm not sure for everyone that's the road. But at the time, that was just the done thing. It was like, right, you're finishing A levels. What university are you going to? There was no question that anybody was going to do anything other than go to university at that time. Don't know if it was like that when you were at school.
Well, similar. Well, I didn't expect to go to university. I was like bottom set English for GCSEs and had to really work to get that C on the lowest paper to go on to do A levels. Did A levels, did PE. First cohort of Ballacomine to do it. So there were, expectation-wise, it was quite low, I suppose. Did chemistry as well and business. Applied to Loughborough, but the expected grades I got, they refused me, so I went to John Moores in Liverpool.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I was not expecting to go to uni. It was like a Brucey bonus if I got the grades to go, and I did all right. I got some pretty good A levels, and it sort of opened the door to me, which, growing up on my council estate in Annika, was not really on the horizon at that time, as a kid. So. Yes, and like you say, going back about how mature you are when you go as an 18-year-old, I probably wasn't, and I really struggled. The first year wasn't so bad. Second year, when you moved out of halls and you were living in some absolute hovel of a house off Smithdown Road in Liverpool, where the oven didn't even work properly. So all of a sudden, it was pretty horrible. I nearly quit in the second year, and nearly pulled out.
Right.
And then I thought, developed a bit of resilience somewhere and stuck it out and come out the other side. But you're right. I think if I went at age 22 or 23, having had a bit of life experience, realised what the real world's like when you got to go out there and work. I mean, I always worked anyway. I think I probably would have been in a better place mentally to really get the most out of it.
Yeah. So I guess because what age are you now?
40 last week.
So 4 years above me. We kind of timed things a little quite right, in a good sense, in terms of, by the time we graduated, sports development roles were becoming the norm. Before that, I guess there wasn't really anything. I had no idea when I went to university what I was going to do with my degree. All I knew was I like sport. Yeah. And I'm going to study something that I'm keen at. I probably should, I'm more likely to get better grades if I study something that I enjoy doing.
Absolutely.
And there was no plan. I guess there still isn't really, you could argue, but yeah.
But I say, sports jobs were scarce on the Isle of Man, weren't they? Development had only just really come about then, and I think when I graduated and when you graduated, there was probably... It was Dave Teese and Johnny Epifani when I first graduated, and then obviously Paul Brideson and Aaron Quinn came into that fold as well, and Emma Callow. So and it's grown exponentially since then. Yeah,
and likewise across. I look at when I joined the FA in 2011, Christmas 2011, the whole technical division. That includes medics, physios, admin staff, national coaches, grassroots regional coaches, of which in my team there were 8 of my role, another 8 of another role. I think the whole grassroots division the whole technical division was 80 staff.
Right.
And now the whole technical division is, I think, around 350.
Crikey.
So in 9 years, in 8 years, the investment into football facing, coaching, coach development roles is just it's good to see it's being valued, and hopefully the impact is now being felt.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what was your first role on the Isle of Man? I suppose in a development role.
I was at the high school covering the lessons. I had my year 10 tutor group. It was great, and then a role came up with the Isle of Man FA as a women's and girls football development officer. So it was a small team, and I was encouraged to apply for it. I think I'd just completed my UEFA B license at the time, had some education experience, so there was, it was good, fortunate timing. So fortunately got that role, and then it was much more focused around grassroots clubs, and schools developing opportunities for girls to play.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, we've just seen one of the mums of one of the first kids that I ever coached, because I was quite hands-on in that role. One of the things we set up was a development centre for girls, for girls to represent the island at 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, and then create a pathway into the national women's team. And I remember she was in the first under 12s group, which was the group I coached. And then Mum was just showing me first. She's now 23. I can't believe it. But it's
you feel really old.
Yeah, but it's great and to hear, and to, I still see that some of those girls that started back then which would have been 11, are now playing for the senior team, and I think they just had a good summer, didn't they? Did they win the Island Games, the ladies?
I think so. The Island Games went to. It wasn't in the Island Games, so they had a separate tournament in Anglesey. Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure they. Well, I saw some stuff online anyway, and I saw the team photograph and just went, yep, and it was so inspiring to see that there's players that are still playing the game and playing it well. Yeah.
12, 13 years after hopefully they were given an opportunity to play.
Oh, it's fantastic to see the fruits of your labour sort of.
I'm not saying it was on me at all. It would have happened anyway, but it's I guess it's the best part of the job of a coach, is to see that long-term development, and especially when they're still in the game as adults. Yeah.
Definitely, and whether it's representative for Ireland or whether it's playing locally, it's keeping people in sport, isn't it? Is key. So that was the first role. I think I was in that role 18 months or so, and then my manager at the time, you remember Andy Wadsworth? Yeah, a friend of mine. Yeah,
he was our partner in crime. I think it might be the last time I saw you, when we went to that Ocean Colour Scene gig in Manchester. Yeah. So he moved across to West Riding up in Leeds, and then I moved into his role to kind of manage the football development team over here for I think about another 18 months before the role at Liverpool came up, and that was kind of too much of an opportunity to miss then, because I thought, well, this seems to be my career path, football development. But my real passion at the time was coach development or coach education, because I think there is a difference. So at the time, myself and Paul were delivering level 1 qualifications over here, and I learnt so much from him. It was, again, very lucky, right time, right place to have a mentor like that. Someone so experienced to kind of guide me through. So when the role came up at Liverpool, it was, for me, a no-brainer career-wise, because it just opened up 10 times the amount of opportunity to go out and work with coaches in an educational environment, which is what I still enjoy doing the most, really.
So you mentioned there about the difference between coach education and coach development. So how would you describe the key differences there?
I'll probably get shot down here by the academics, but the way I see it is that coach education is it's a means to an end. So there's a qualification there that your job is to help the learner attain. Coach development is an ongoing process. It might be in a mentoring capacity. There is perhaps no end in sight. We've muddied the waters a little bit, which I'm quite pleased about, because we now go out to see, and as happens over here, coaches working in their own environment. So we don't have too many times where, as you'll have known on coaching courses, where the adults are running around well behaved for one another. But then struggle to deal with, the reality of parents and misbehaviour and all the other things that I guess get in the way of what the coaches want to do, which is to try and help the players get a little bit better.
Absolutely. The course can be quite a sterile environment, can't it? And to a degree, and like, as you say there, you're not generally working with players on the course, and the challenges that get thrown at you can be coming at you from all angles as well.
That's something that we've tried to change and be a bit braver in terms of, so I'm a big believer in club-based courses. I think there's tremendous value in that, in having a group of coaches who should have a common purpose for their club, in their own environment, and coaching their own players in an educational environment, in a kind of as realistic as you can make it. And that's something that we've tried to do across, and there's a number of coaches around the country who've latched onto this and embraced it.
Okay.
And it does provide some really, good experiences and good talking points to mould a course around the training and playing environment of a club. Not practical or feasible or possible everywhere, I get that, but it's something that we've tried to do, and even when that's not possible, just bringing in players to you might be on a coaching course, say for example a rugby coaching course. What's to stop you having your players come in, take part in a session that you might put on course? Interesting
that you said that. I literally a year or so ago did my England Rugby Coaching Awards.
Right.
It's like level 2, you go straight in at that. Chris Brannigan, the local rugby development officer, he did just that. He brought in players from his developing player programme, so we could use them during the session, and it had a massive impact on what you got out of that session then. You know what I mean? Because you were doing real coaching on the actual course with real people, real young people who respond how young people respond. It kept you honest. It wasn't someone who perhaps knew the answers, who might have just been sort of playing along in a role to make it easy for you. You know what I mean?
So you've probably had, given your role, you've probably had exposure to a really wide range of NGB coaching awards now, I would guess.
Surprisingly, no. The main ones I've done have come through athletics.
Right.
I've come through rugby as well.
So what have been some of the best sort of coach ed learning experiences that you've had then over the time that you've been involved in it?
Okay, so the best sort of coach education, I mean, I really enjoyed the rugby one.
Yeah.
Probably one
what
of the
was it, level 1?
Ones I did. They have what's called an IRCA, an England Rugby Coaching Award now.
Yep.
So they've got away with from level 1s and level 2s. And it's basically your how to coach skills. So it's giving you what you need to be able to go out there and create a good environment for the participants.
Yeah.
Understand how to communicate, observe and analyse, and provide an opportunity for them to play.
So are they the core skills?
Feedback. So
how is that taught then? What's the format?
So the format for the IRCA, making me think now. It was very much around. It wasn't content driven.
Right.
It wasn't massively. You would have like some of the key things that you're looking to try and develop, but they would set it up so you've got a game zone and a skill zone.
Yeah.
So you'd be doing game-based learning, setting problems with different games to bring about the different skills that you're trying to get across to the players, without you actually giving demonstrations all the time and trying to set scenarios. And then from that, you could see how they were responding to it and where they might be struggling in a certain area. You'd have a different zone set up, which would be your skill zone.
Yeah.
So in your skill zone, you'd set up a particular activity that might break down that game zone skill in a slightly more, not necessarily drill orientated, but a smaller, more concentrated version of the game you were just playing.
I see.
So that you could pick up those skills.
Okay.
Whether it's body positions for rucking, whether it's a sort of easier version of a passing game, so that you could go back into the main game and sort of then you could see those skills.
Yeah, and so within that group of people that you had on the course then, was it sort of context specific? So in other words, was it all mini rugby, or did you have some coaches who took the little ones right the way up to the adults? Like, what's the sort of makeup of the coaches? And that'll lead on to the sort of next question then.
Right. Well, the makeup of the coaches, we had a mixture. A lot of them were probably working with a range of age groups at their clubs. The age group we had there with us to actually use within the session, as well as ourselves, was probably about under 14, under 15 age group.
Right.
So we're working with those. So in terms of the context, I suppose it was more aimed at that particular age
like
group.
What would be an example of one of the games then that they taught you on the course?
So you might be. We did all non-contact.
Yep.
So we were doing
So like tag.
touch rugby, tag rugby. And we would pop in lots of different rules to work on different aspects of the game. So you'd have principles of play.
Yeah.
So let's say our principle of play was go forward. Don't move that, Trev. It was go forward. How could we manipulate the game to allow lots of go forward? So
in football we would call that penetrating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you condition the game to then bring that out?
So like for instance, you could say, right, you could have a sniper rule. So
right.
Let's say everyone had like a number.
Yeah.
1 to 8, however many were in your team. And someone on the other team could shout 8, and whoever that number 8 was on the opposition had to drop like they were shot by a sniper.
Okay.
So then it would create a space
gap
for someone to run at, you know what I mean? And just lots of different innovative ways of trying to put rules in that could make it harder. Or you could say, right, the first touch you can carry on running, so you have to get touched twice.
Oh, I see.
Before you have to pass the ball or it gets turned over. So what then happens is you might get 2 players very quickly trying to come and tackle that player with 2 touches. So the flip side of that is if there's 2 players on that player, you've created spaces elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that enables
an
go
offload.
forward for an offload. Yeah. So as well as creating the pressure of having to pass the ball, whilst players are coming at you.
I like it.
You can make up the different rules. You could give people superpowers.
What would that do?
Again, a superpower. Say you give someone a hat or a headband.
Yeah.
And you sometimes you might not tell the opposition what the superpower is, and they've got to figure out how they're going to do it. And it could be he's allowed to go offside, so he could go and run up in the goal area.
Yeah. And
have the ball kicked to him or something like that.
I see. Yeah.
So you're trying to encourage more footwork and stuff like that, or you might throw footballs or different shaped balls in there as well to encourage a bit more football skill type work. Give them football, instinctively they're more likely to sort of kick it because it's easier to kick than a rugby ball. So that was some of the things that we would be doing. And one of the great things I found about it now is when I was a player, you were often pigeonholed as a position.
Yeah.
Trev, you're 6'2", you're second row. Get your head stuck in there between the props and push like that.
I showed a natural. I got rid of the belly at year 7 thanks to the PE, and then I think they know I got quite into my running, middle and long distance, so it was like open slide flanker. There you go. That's you from year 7 to year 30. I never got a touch of the ball really.
And that happened in club rugby. I went to club rugby and I was pretty much second row all day.
I can see why. To be fair,
I wanted to play back row. Everyone does. You get more running to do. But I suppose going back to my original point was, as a second rower, if you kick that ball on the pitch, everyone screamed at you like you made the biggest sin ever. It's like, what? You're a forward. You don't ever kick the ball.
I was listening to the commentary of the I think it was the Ireland-Japan game last weekend in the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah. And
the Irish commentator on 5 Live was going bananas because of that.
Yeah.
I think an Irish forward had picked the ball up and kicked it.
Yeah.
And it was funny listening, to be fair. But that was that still is, I guess, taken for granted in some respects.
But now, it's changing. I mean, they're very much encouraging now where you're not a prop or you're not a this or you're not a that, because you're kids and you're all developing, you're all growing at different rates. Who knows what your physical makeup's going to be? So you might be more likely to be a low number or a high number.
Yeah.
And be a sort of grey area in the middle there as well. So the course was very much around giving everyone a real good rounding of skills, because you don't know what they're going to spit out at the other end and what kind of player they're going to be. So why not let a forward kick?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why not give them the skills so that if they're going up against someone, they've got another tool in their tool bag to beat the player.
Well, it's interesting you said, because you had Phil on, didn't Phil Kringle?
Yeah.
Who's playing at a good level, right?
He's playing tier 2, so he's in for London Scottish.
Right, because I remember Phil at school. I think he was there when I was teaching there, but he was a front row. I'm pretty sure. Hooker.
Yeah. He plays tighter prop.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just remember being on the front row literally from day one. But I've seen Phil's football skills as well, so he probably ended up in the right place. But it's interesting that that's the way that the RFU are teaching that. And then, so you said about the core skills is the first module of the course, is it? Or?
Yeah, it's they try and teach principles of play.
Right, so the technical and tactical principles.
Yeah. So it's tactical principles of play. So in rugby, it's contest the ball.
Yeah.
Go forward, support, which enables more go forward.
Yeah.
Continuity, and then score a try, basically.
Right, so they're the attacking principles.
So they're your attacking principles. Yeah. In your defensive principles are quite similar as well. Contest the ball.
Yeah.
I always struggle with the defensive ones. You're still looking to go forward because you're trying to reduce the space for them to go forward. You've still got to support, as in support your team to fill the gaps. You've got to reduce opportunities. You're trying to reduce the opportunities for the opposition to play, and pressure. And put pressure on the opposition.
Right.
So they try and centre the games around those principles. So you're trying to create a common language.
Yep.
That you as a coaching team and the players get used to, in order to help develop those skills in the game. So rather than sort of breaking down the pass into a really boring drill, they will say pull people out to do a skill zone to work on that passing if they feel they need to.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other than that, get them in the game, give some generic points that everyone might need as well.
Yeah.
And if someone needs a bit more specific support, as a coaching team, and you can pull someone out. And that's the other challenge is that co-coaching. I'm seeing a lot more in rugby. We try to do a lot of co-coaching.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just you and 20 kids on your own, and you don't always get the opportunity to co-coach, which I think is a real weakness of coaching. I think the more coaches we can get into an environment where coaches can work together, bounce ideas off each other, meet the different needs of the players at different times within the session.
Yeah.
I think we can help develop the players more effectively. So we have development player program sessions now over at the Bowl, so I'm involved with that, which is that we have a Sales Sharks development player program as a pathway into that. And we are blessed, we are lucky, because we were down there the other night and we had probably a team of 6 coaches with 24 players.
Is this like an elite program then?
Well, get rid of the word elite.
Sorry, fine, slap on the wrist.
But it's a pathway to develop. Yeah, and regardless of whether you get into sale or not, it's about developing people and giving them, but also developing them as rugby players. So they're people first and players second.
So are you coaching in that?
So I'm coaching that as a support coach, and it's something I wanted to do, to be able to not just be a coach and sports coach and coordinator and who sits in an office. I want to get out and make sure I'm hands-on, because most of my coaching is in the gym, in the strength and conditioning suite. But going back to the co-coaching scenario, what I like, the Sale Sharks DNA as such has a guy's refereeing the game as a coach, and then you might have a satellite coach who's orbiting the game and looking at what's going on, and giving and might pull some people out here and there and get a few different coaching principles across and talk to people while the game's going on. And then you might have a microscope coach who will really sort of get in to key people, pull them out, go through some real specific stuff with them that they might have identified that they might be struggling with in the game, and then sending them back in and see how they get on with that. So it's a real coach and team effort. Yeah. Everyone working together with different roles. So
that's interesting, because I think that's something that traditionally we haven't done very well in football. I can't talk for the professional environments, but in grassroots, I see a lot of it, and I see a lot of coaching pairs, but it's very much, there's a hierarchy of dominance there, where one will take the lead and another one might be responsible for picking up and putting down cones. Right. And you just think, we could do this better. So what's the planning process that you go through then? Because I can imagine that's quite complicated with a team of 6 of you and 20 players, did you say?
Yeah, about 24 players. So what will happen is we've got a head coach for the group. So our under-14s group is Seth Waterworth. So Seth will set the session plan, send it out to guys on a WhatsApp.
How long in advance?
A few days, maybe even more than that.
Yep.
You know, the principles that we're trying to get across are built in the Sale Sharks DNA.
Okay.
So they've got a big bank of different games to meet different principles of play and different skills that we're looking to try and achieve. Seth will then pick one that we're going to work on for that particular session, do a session plan around it, send it out. We get to then, if we're not sure about anything, have a chat on WhatsApp and make sure we're going into that session, we know what we're doing.
Right.
So Seth, he'll be the lead, but then we'll all share roles on the actual evening and mix it up. So one will be refereeing, one will be satellite, one will be helicopter, one will be microscope, and then we might do 6 minutes of a particular skill or game, and then switch the roles around. So we're getting used to doing different things.
I see, and that's all those roles are the parameters of those roles are sort of defined beforehand. Of who can a microscope coach work with, or who does the orbital coach? What is their role? That's kind of predefined and everyone understands it, is it?
To a degree,
yeah.
We're just finding our feet. We've only literally just had the first session last week, so we're finding our feet with it. But effectively, you'll be assigned a role as who's what, and then change that around so everyone's getting it from a coaching development perspective. You're not just picking up cones and setting up a pitch.
No, you are
getting an experience of different types of coaching. And then we'll review the session at the end and feedback into that.
Well, the reason why I ask is there's an amazing video. In fact, if you look and you've got a good filter, there's so much good stuff out there for coaches. But there's a really good video I recommend on YouTube, and it's Professor Chris Cushion. So he's professor of coaching and pedagogy. I hope that's right. Anyway, apologies, Chris, if it's not. At Loughborough. And I think it's about a 50-minute presentation from a Gaelic Games conference in Ireland a few years ago. If you just type in Chris Cushion GAA on YouTube, you'll find it. It's well shot, so it's visually good, but there's some gold in there. And one of the things that he talks about, which I fully agree with, is coaches are we tend to, and especially at that level, there's a pretty detailed plan of what the players are going to do. But then where's the plan for what the coaches do? He calls it, or do we just shoot from the hip? Do we just kind of react and respond? And so he makes a really good argument that actually in your coaching plan, the X's and O's are absolutely fine, but on the other half of the paper, literally turn the paper in half and plan what are you going to do. So at this game, at this point, what am I going to do? I might say nothing. I might observe. Okay, where am I going to observe from? What am I looking for? If I'm a coach who believes that questions and well-timed and cleverly worded questions are important, I should probably plan those, because it's very difficult to generate questions that promote thought and learning off the hip unless you're very, very experienced. So, and I watched this a few years ago now, and it really got me thinking about being more conscious of what am I actually doing while the players are taking part in the session, and being more conscious of beforehand, flipping it over to stopping worrying about what the players are going to do and actually being more concerned with who do I need to speak to, who do I need to kind of check in with, because you get a finite amount of time with them, and so the impact that you have or what you do with that time and yourself it's really important. You've got to do it well, because how many hours do you get with the Sale lads?
We've got about an hour and a quarter
in a week.
In a month.
In a month.
Yeah. So they do their club rugby, and then they come in once a month. They'll come and meet with us.
That has got to be like military style precision to get the most out of that time, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get as much bang for your buck as you can, and make that session as purposeful as possible. Yeah. So, we're talking about acronyms before. The RFU acronym is APES.
I've heard this. Go on, what's that stand for again?
Active, purposeful, enjoyable and safe.
Yeah.
So make your session. If you can nail all them in your session, you've done all right.
Yeah. I think England Hockey have got something similar that they've called the Golden Thread.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting and useful free document that coaches can just pull off the internet, and there's some really decent principles, I think, behind, regardless of whether you're a hockey coach or not, whatever sport you work in, there's some great stuff in there, I think.
It really is. We had Danny Newcombe over for our coaching festival. We come across Danny and Scott McNeil, who basically rewrote the hockey coach education system. And they were going through some sessions on constraints-led coaching and creating effective learning environments. But the golden thread stuff, absolutely transcends hockey. It was very similar to rugby's cards.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
So that's another acronym. Players who are creative, awareness, resilient, good decision makers, and can self-organise. So that was the acronym for that, and I try and figure out how I can work on those skills with the players and highlight those skills with the players in the session, and create those opportunities is quite key. I quite like that one from rugby, from cards.
You just reminded me of something of recently, where I was watching a young girl get kind of challenged with her spellings, and I was watching, so it was like, what does this say? And there was like maybe a couple of seconds of silence, and then the answer or the prompt for the answer would come. And I think we're very keen to we don't like silence as coaches.
No.
So you said there about what was the decision makers or resilient, so in the cards acronym.
So awareness, was resilient, decision makers, and
self-organising. So we're not very good with chaos or disorganisation as coaches. We're quite neat and tidy, and there's that. I think we need to get more comfortable with providing those moments or asking a question, not necessarily for the answer, just for the question's sake, just to
make them think.
Plant the seed. Just reminded me of that I don't know if it's a Western culture thing that we want the answers now, we want the shortcuts now, because it's this kind of race to the bottom, that everything's got to be done sooner, and it's just me on a flying tangent there, Trevor, apologies.
It's okay. Well, coming up to about 45 minutes, so we'll pose a bit of round things up as well. So we'll be getting on for one of our longest episodes, Jack.
I know, I can ramble. I did warn you that. Yeah.
But I think you're up there with Damien Hughes on our first episode.
That's good company. Good. Yeah, I can't fit to lace his boots, but I'm interested in what you've got going on here, because it's been a while since I've been back. So what sort of coach development things have you got going on over here that I can steal some ideas from?
Right. Well, me personally, some of the initiatives that I've been running, we've been doing breakfast clubs quarterly. So trying to bring, for me, I think it's important to try and bring coaches from different sports together.
Agree.
We've got loads of people doing really good stuff in different clubs, but we don't always know about it. So we can bring coaches together to sort of talk about what they're doing and getting up to, and sharing those ideas, and perhaps offering someone a different lens to look through for their own sport is a really good way of sort of challenging what we normally do. So that's we've had a sort of around about 11 coaches coming to that each time.
So what sort of time of the morning is it?
Early Saturday or Sunday morning.
Okay, so
8 o'clock.
Right.
8 o'clock till about 9:30. So then you can get off and go and do your sport for the weekend.
Okay.
So get the sausage baps on.
So you put the food on. Good on you.
We go around. We've been going around the island with it. So we've been at Douglas. We've been at Ramsey Rugby Club, Colby Football Club, Peel Golf Club, and just trying to mix up the venues. And we've had a sort of regular cohort of people who've travelled around.
Yeah.
But by going to different regions, we've enabled people who perhaps have found it a struggle to travel to come to something that happens on the doorstep as well. So that's been really good.
So what does that look like then? So you get these guys together for what, hour and a half?
Hour and a half, yeah. So what we try to do, we've had a bit of two different approaches.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've had like a guest coach present.
Okay.
So we had John Whiting present from hockey, who actually presented on Golden Thread.
Okay.
Because he'd been through the advanced coaching programme with England Hockey.
Yeah.
We had Martin Bullock give a really interesting perspective from motorsport. So he manages a motorsport team for Manx Grand Prix. So we looked at his sort of psychological approach to preparing riders and bikes and the sort of multidisciplinary approach with the different mechanics to look at how they can get the bike to work different tactics for different races.
Okay.
With the example of Caroline Sells, the female who won Manx Grand Prix.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she did it on 1 tank of fuel.
Wow.
Which now you have to do a pit stop, but prior to that they thought, how can we beat the game, which is another rugby thing, how can we beat the game? So they looked at how they could modify the bike within the rules and get Caroline to tactically ride the course so that she conserved enough fuel to be able to get round on 1 tank of fuel. And she did it.
Wow.
So
I'll have to look into that.
The look on everyone's face when everyone thought she was going to come in and pit and she didn't. Amazing. So that was Martin. We also had John Kane from boxing. He did a talk on I suppose he had 3 different principles. Let's see if I can remember what they are. I don't do what I've always done, or what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
And gave the example of it was brilliant, the boxing club, when he first went to a boxing club in Liverpool, and the guy had loads of numbers of kids. I thought, I can't coach this many kids, it's too many. So the guy's approach was, right guys, we're sparring tonight, so 30 kids would all be sparring, and then the next week will come along and there'd maybe be about 22 kids. Right lads, we're sparring tonight, so they'll all be sparring. The next week it'll be about 16 kids. He got down to about 10 kids and said, right, we can do some coaching now.
Survival of the fittest. I shouldn't laugh.
And John was like,
that's the way
you
it
know
was.
what, that was how things were when I was a kid,
yeah.
but we can't do that. I said, so he said, I was coaching in Jersey and there was a kid there, if we'd used that approach, would never have got through.
Yeah.
Yet with a bit of nurturing and providing the right environment for him, he managed to stick with the sport, love the sport, and develop and do quite well. So you're missing out on so many people who would really love that sport by having that sort of approach. And you got to work with what you've got, was his other golden rule. Because on the Isle of Man, especially in boxing, you've got a very small talent pool. You haven't got many people coming in, so the level of the amount of competition that you're getting exposed to in training is limited. So if you've got like a gym with 20 boxers in, he gave the example of 3 boxers of slightly different weight categories, different ages and different experiences and different abilities. How can I get these guys ready for their next fight?
Yeah, because there's not the opportunity to spar against someone the same weight as you necessarily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
how did you do it then?
Well, he had one guy who was boxing for Commonwealth Games, another guy who was a junior but was probably about 15, 16, something like that, but was looking to get to Commonwealth Youth Games and was doing well regionally in the ABAs, and another senior fighter, a little bit heavier, not much in the way of experience, but so how can I get them to work together? So his solution was to have the experienced fighter who was pretty tasty, getting ready for the Commonwealth Games, to be sparring and cycle the other guys in.
Oh right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So he knew, obviously, assessed the ability of the younger boxer who was trying to get ready for Commonwealth Youth Games later on. I could put him in for 2 minutes with this guy, and then bring the older guy in who was fresh, and then put him in for 2 minutes. So they're fresh. They've got enough energy and wits about them to be able to put pressure on the other boxer because they know they're going to get a break, whereas the experienced boxer isn't getting a break, so he's getting a real test. Okay. That was his sort of innovative solution with minimal people.
Bit different from when he started then,
yeah.
So these coach development sessions that you do, so you said you got roughly about 11 meet once a quarter. So you get guest speakers in, but then is there do they go off and do anything to come back with?
That's the challenge at the minute. Is actually, how can we try and get some sort of actions out of that? And I think that's the next progression for it, really, is to see how can we make that more meaningful, of an experience. So we've come in, we've shared some ideas. Well, we need to start. How can we encourage them to have an action plan from that, and then feedback as to how they've got on.
And do they communicate as a group? Is there any sort of channels that they keep the conversation going as a group of coaches?
Perhaps informally, but I couldn't tell you at the moment. One thing that has come about from the podcasts, we have 4 female coaches in from various sports: judo, athletics, swimming and netball.
Okay.
Now they have we set up like a little WhatsApp group so I could get information to them. So they've kept that WhatsApp group now, and they're going to each other's coaching sessions to watch each other coach. They're going to meet up informally as well, have a glass of wine and talk about coaching. So that's provided an opportunity for some sort of continued communication between that group, and perhaps that's what needs to happen now for that breakfast club. Yeah.
Well, if they're interested, and exclusive for you here, we're doing a big female coaches night. I think fingers crossed it's confirmed. Apologies if it's not, Wayne, but at Anfield on I think Friday the 15th of November. I think that's the day. It's basically the WSL, the Women's Super League Merseyside Derby is on the Sunday, and we're looking to put on a female coaches networking evening, but not it's obviously going to be football led, but not necessarily football heavy. So we want to try and encourage coaches, female coaches from all sports around the area, Liverpool. But if they wanted to come over and come to the event, just keep an eye out on the Liverpool FA social channels for information. But that's coming up soon. We're hoping to get a really, really good lineup on the panel. So that's something to look forward to. But I think it's important that those events, if you like, the breakfast clubs, they're not just kind of one-off, that it's a nice little shot in the arm and then nothing's done with it. It's getting ever more and more easier to communicate and to look at us now. This probably wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago. You and I having this conversation because of how easy it is to communicate. So you've seen a post that I've put up, and half an hour later we're sat in here having a coffee and a chat, and then it's going to go out to however many 100 or 1,000 people. And I think we need, as a coaching community, we need to embrace that aspect of communication more, and to share stuff more, because there is so much good stuff out there, and there is so many good people out there who are so accessible. I don't think people necessarily realise that.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of other things that we're doing now, we're on our second year of our coaching festival as well. Okay. So last year we had John Fletcher, former England rugby under-18s coach, come over and do some masterclasses and talk. We had Cameron Vile, who's a UK coaching tutor, come over and do some new UK coaching workshops as well. So we're trying to offer some stuff that we've not had on the Isle of Man before, really. So we repeated that this year. We had Danny and Scott over from hockey. We had John Mills, who's from British Cycling, formerly, come over and deliver some workshops as well. So that's going down quite well. We're getting some good turnouts there, some really good educational opportunities. So we're looking at how we can sort of expand that going forwards. And going back to what you said just there, how can we track back and look at how that's impacting? Because that's the massive thing to look at. How are these opportunities impacting on what coaches are actually doing?
Well, and that's what I like about what you do, because you are, I see a lot of you kind of embrace the online stuff, and you're quite on the front foot in sharing stuff out there, what's going on, and quite forward thinking and creative. But you're still a coach, aren't you? Your job is sports development, but you still get your hands dirty and are still at the coalface.
I think that's important, because I think it's easy to sit in an ivory tower in an office somewhere and not have a real understanding of what people are actually experiencing and have an understanding and empathy for their scenarios and situations. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Thanks, Jack.
It sounds like you've got. I'm killing your time here. Right? We can hit. I'm going to get warmed up here. Sorry.
I'll do a two-parter.
It sounds like you've had some real exposure to some high quality people that have probably challenged the way you think and do. So because it's been a while since I've seen you. So what have you changed in your coaching?
Okay.
Or what have you changed your mind about?
Well, to look back at my coaching in the past, I was very much probably a Mr. Tell. As quite a lot of us are still. Wanting to fill those gaps, wanting to fill those silences, which we were talking about earlier. So now I'm probably much more of a trying to enable thinking to take place, ask more key questions of the athletes who I work with or the players who I work with. But I suppose what's transformed my coaching more now is looking less at the X's and O's and looking at more around the relationships and how to communicate better with people. Very much, especially in the gym, this particular technique for an exercise, this is the reps and sets that you've got to do to achieve whatever it is you're going to do. But what's the use in having all that technical knowledge if I'm not able to communicate and make it exciting and interesting for the athlete? Similarly, on the rugby pitch, you know, it's all very well knowing all the tactics and all the techniques of how to do stuff, but if I can't get it across to them
Staff call, Lex to reception, please. Lex to reception.
Come on, Lex.
Thank
in a fun and interesting way, where I can really connect with them and sort of enjoy that relationship, so that, you know, that they feel that they're invested and interested in, and so enables me to get more out of them in the session.
Have you come across Dr. Brian Geraghty?
I haven't, no.
Given the gym stuff, I hope I get this right, but he is at a big university in the States, and he came over and delivered a keynote at the Cluster for Research into Coaching conference, the CRIC conference down at Worcester last month, and he talked of a similar sort of journey to yourself. He's a strength and conditioning coach.
Okay.
But I think his work you'd probably find very interesting.
I'll look him up for sure.
Yeah, but it's funny you say that, because I was thinking about my own coaching, and I'd say so something happened this summer that hasn't happened in a while, and that was I kept, and it's probably the thing when I think about it now, I'm probably the most proud of in my whole coaching journey, which is 20 odd years now, and that was we had our boys were a squad of 19 boys, 19 under 15s last season, and all 19 are still playing this season. So we've had nobody drop out.
Brilliant.
Nobody move to anywhere else, and this isn't a very successful, in inverted commas, team in terms of win-loss record or points. Quite the opposite, actually. But think about it, to keep 19 boys playing football from one year to the next is, I think you've got to have that relationship.
I definitely, you've asked the question, what's changed the most? I think I'm much more about developing people rather than developing a sports person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think, going back to other acronyms, rugby's got TREADS, which is
struggling to keep up with all these.
Teamwork, respect, enjoyment, discipline and sportsmanship.
Right.
So if I can try and help develop really, 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 really good people who've got really good values and behaviours, I suppose a bit like Mr. Smith and Mr. McGregor would be doing, and the byproduct of that is they're going to be hardworking, resilient, focused. They're going to enjoy what they're doing, and if they then become successful or carry on playing sport at whatever level they do, then that's success.
So is there a particular athlete or player that you've coached in your lifespan that you're most proud of?
Oh right, crikey, now you're talking. I couldn't think you just pick one.
Or more?
I can't name a name on this one because for personal reasons, but there is a one young lad who I met through a different guise in a different role that I had, and this particular young lad, he was sort of struggling with the school environment at the time, so we were doing a lot of focus work with him, sort of in one-to-one sessions to try and improve his self-esteem and confidence, so that he could better re-engage with school, because he was struggling there. And what I love about this now is this player now, this lad, he's re-engaging with school completely. I mean, didn't even want to cross the threshold and go into school. He's back in the school environment. He's doing well. He's really enjoying it. He's loving his sport that much now. He's gone through onto different pathway sessions and is accessing some great coaching in his chosen sport. He's been open opportunities for him as well via other academies as well. So I don't want to name the academies that he's involved with or anything like that. But for me, to see someone go from being very vulnerable and really sort of on the verge of potentially becoming a ghost to sport, to pinch a phrase Paul Jones uses a lot, and someone who could quite easily have just gone in a completely another direction, to see them a real happy, functioning teenager who's loving sport, loving school, loving life, and making good relationships with people. That for me would be my most proudest thing I could see as a coach, for sure.
I imagine the coach of Tyrone Mings, I don't know if you've heard of Tyrone, he plays for Aston Villa, but he's just got his first England senior call up yesterday. At I guess a later age than many would, and his developmental journey, I won't go into it, but it was involved homeless shelters, and he's come through what seemed like quite a turbulent upbringing, and now he's got the opportunity to represent his country at first team level. It's pretty inspiring stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like you say, it's great just to see people, for me, just be good people. Being decent guys, decent blokes, decent girls, people who are contributing positively to the community, and that's massive for me, regardless of what level they might end up playing at. I think if you're in the business of developing good people and you're using sport as the vehicle to do that, and brilliant, I suppose that's where I like to see myself as a coach.
Good.
So we probably better round up there, Jack.
I told you I could ramble.
So I really, really appreciate you coming in at really short notice and contributing to our podcast.
No problem.
We've had some great.
What is the name of the podcast, so that anyone listening to Liverpool FM might want to?
It's just the Isle of Man Sport podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to sign up, we are on YouTube. We put it out on YouTube.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. You can also check it out on the isleofmansport.com website.
Can you not download it on the podcast app?
That's something me and Paul Callow are looking into at the moment, to try and get it on something like iTunes or something.
I can help you with that. It's really easy.
Fab.
Once you set up, it's one click.
Super duper.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can reach a wider audience then as well.
Yeah.
So, thanks for your time coming in. Thanks for, because you're going to use this for your own.
We'll rip the audio off, and it's a good excuse to get something out of being dormant for a while. So
definitely, again, it spreads the news of what's going on the Isle of Man to further afield. So
there's some great stuff going on. No, thanks, mate. I appreciate the invite. It was it's good to see you again. And next, we'll have to get you across to Liverpool at some point. You'll have to let us know if you're over, and we'll do a round two.
For sure. See if we can link it up with an Ocean Cold Scene concert.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Good stuff.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Cheers.